I was there.
I was there.
I was there. That's right, my friends. We are here to discuss Babylon 5: The Road Home, the brand new animated feature starring as much of the original cast as we were still able to have with us, as well as some recasts, and it is in glorious HD on your 4K, your Blu-ray, your Amazon Digital, wherever you were able to pick that up. It is now here for us to enjoy. So I will be going into a heck of a lot of spoilers here, so I don't want to put you off, so I'll give brief thoughts on it overall before I get to those. If you are looking for a sort of anniversary reunion thing, or if you're looking for, I don't know, a continuation of a storyline from the show, I'm not entirely sure what people were looking for here, but this may not be exactly what you were thinking of when this was first announced. You may be surprised by what this actual episode, movie, installment is. So if you're a fan of John Sheridan and maybe even the relationship of John Sheridan and Delenn, this is probably going to be pretty good to you, pretty good for you. If you're big on trying to see some more updated effects, the Babylon 5 universe as a whole, the technology, the ships, the inside of Babylon 5, in a way you weren't really able to get in the original early days of CG of the show, then this is definitely going to be for you as well. If you are not into grand scale, epic, convoluted isn't the right word, but maybe sort of kind of a little tricksy to understand at certain points, you really kind of need to be well versed in the Babylon 5 universe to appreciate exactly what's going on, then you may want to, I don't know, brush up on Babylon 5 before getting into this. They did do a little bit of a good job of setting the stage, kind of retelling a few events of things in the show, so I am curious to find out how many people went into this not knowing much about Babylon 5 and what they were able to get out of it. I definitely think there is a lot in this that you need to be kind of immersed in the show to get, and obviously there's a lot of things I probably didn't catch not having watched the show in its entirety in a couple of years now to refresh myself. That's pretty much all I can really talk about without getting into the spoilers, so here we go. I'm not going to do a scene-by-scene breakdown analysis of the entire thing, but the movie overall was pretty quickly paced. It wasn't really giving us too much time to get used to the world. Bruce Boxleitner did a fantastic job carrying this movie because we were led to believe this was an ensemble Babylon 5 movie, and I'm here to say it is 100% not that. Sure, a lot of our Babylon 5 favorites were here, whether the original actors were with us to reprise those roles or they had to recast. Almost all of our mainstay Babylon 5 favorites were in this in some form or another. There were a few exceptions, I'll get to those a little bit later, but to hear as many of these people in this movie as they were able to get was just wonderful. But this is 100% a John Sheridan story. I know I touched on earlier that it's a John Sheridan Delenn kind of romantic thing, but she's not even in it all that much. This reminds me a bit of, I want to say Toy Story 4, where it was called Toy Story 4, but it was really a Woody featuring some cameos and appearances by the other gang from Toy Story. That's what we really have here. This is a John Sheridan narrative. This follows John Sheridan from beginning to almost end, and most of the character-driven stuff in this is John Sheridan reacting and relating to various versions of prior Babylon 5 characters, future Babylon 5 characters, sideways Babylon 5 characters, and that's the real crux of this story here, is the whole multiversal traversal. So it starts out, he's kind of just popping back and forth between times, but then he also begins popping back and forth between different universes, alternate events, timelines, however they want to spin this, however they want to define it. There are alternate outcomes of situations from the pre-established Babylon 5 universe. And I did really kind of enjoy how there were a couple things we saw here. Specifically, I want to say that scene where Ivanova was sending out that transmission while Babylon 5 was about to be destroyed. That was kind of a tense moment, a good action scene. We got to see a heck of a lot of the interior of Babylon 5, well more realized than we had seen in the show prior to this. It really did seem like that alternate reality was from the scene we had seen prior in Babylon 5, where she was sending out that transmission and they established these were alternate events or an alternate timeline bleeding through. So it was cool to actually get that kind of callback. It wasn't necessary. It didn't really impact this movie whatsoever to know that we saw these events or transmissions from either this universe or a very similar one, but to have that connection and that little callback for us as fans to kind of be like, oh, this is probably what we saw in that scene, that really kind of touched on the heart of this being made for the fans. And while it was wonderful for Bruce to carry this entire film, just hearing some of those other returning people playing their roles, specifically Londo, and the precious little we got of Londo in this, was nice to hear. That's a very distinctive voice from a very distinctive sci-fi character. Another person here was G'Kar, and he was obviously recast because we've lost the original actor. That voice sounded a bit off to me, but it worked. The way G'Kar was used in this, at least a version of G'Kar was used in this, that's really, really something that I enjoy. And that's the type of thing that Babylon 5 is able to incorporate, the weird metaphysical, kind of nature of the universe being more than just what we can see, what we can experience. But it was played through G'Kar in his quest to seek out the Rim, and that nice conversation where he's basically saying that Sheridan is the dreamer and the dream. He is able to kind of form and make solid realities that he is viewing because he has now become the observer. And that leads us to the end of the story, and I guess I can get to it now because I'm not really going in order, but this absolutely is setting up that reboot, sort of, because after all of the events, this establishment here that Sheridan, being the quantum observer, is kind of cementing in the fabric of the multiverse these things he's envisioning as solid, realistic versions of reality, which is a bit odd because they were pre-existing, so were they just kind of ephemeral and not really intact until he was there to observe them? So by the fact that he visited this alternate reality, is that leading it to actually be a realistic timeline that we can now continue? Because that is how they end things. We have a Sheridan from beginning to almost end, this linear progression of him throughout the multiverse, but the last place he is in before he is reunited with Delenn, because love conquers all, she is his lightning rod, they are reunited and they seemingly return back to the prime Babylon 5 universe, but we don't see that. We see them peace out. We see them turn into that little Terminator time bubble thing, and they travel back to Prime Universe. We then, for the rest of the movie, which isn't very long, follow the events of this alternate universe. The alternate Sheridan, the alternate crew of Babylon 5, Delenn, who had never undergone her metamorphosis. The Shadows have not been found, and they don't have any sort of encounters with them. So that is the intriguing part here. We get to see that Sinclair is still there. He has never gone back in time. He hasn't gone to join the Rangers. He hasn't gone back to Babylon 4 to transform himself or any of those things. And we get to see that maybe, possibly, Delenn does have a little bit of knowledge of the Shadows like she did in the original, but it hasn't been shared. All of the events that happen here lead to fascinating possibilities, and I think that's the end goal of what this movie was setting up. It was kind of a nice bookend for the John Sheridan character we know from the Prime universe, but now we've got this new universe to explore where events can play out differently, characters we know can do things in a different order, and that is, I think, where we're going forward. If there are going to be more movies, and I think JMS even stated that if this is a hit, they can conceivably do about 2 a year. So is this setting up that reboot that he was talking about, or is this an alternate reboot and he's still planning to do a live action one set differently? I'm not sure. I am very intrigued to see where we go from here. Now, as far as my thoughts on the movie in and of itself, it wasn't exactly what I was expecting. I wouldn't say it was the best thing I've ever seen. It didn't blow me away. It definitely kept my attention, and I liked what I was watching. I felt it was lacking a little bit by the fact that most of the characters just kind of appeared in these brief moments, these like 5 to 10 minute chunks, and then we didn't see them throughout the rest of the episode. And I hope that going forward, we get to see some more grounded storylines, because one thing that Babylon 5 always tended to stay true to was keeping things grounded in the emotional and the personal. Even when there was these fantastical moments in the universe, there wasn't all that much clutter. There was always a sense of the characters, or the character that is experiencing this is first and foremost. So this felt like a bit of a departure for Babylon 5. It's an animated movie, so you can do more of that, and this is kind of this grand, spectacular return into this universe. It wanted to blow the doors off. We have now Sheridan, Lockley, and Sinclair all on Babylon 5 at the same time. Now, a couple of the other downsides here, and maybe I missed them, blink and you miss it, and maybe they were left out for a reason. I didn't seem to notice Veer anywhere. Maybe he was in the background scene for a brief minute, and I didn't see Talia. Anytime they went to an alternate universe, it was always Lita. I know she's a primary telepath, but in one of the alternate universes, it probably would have made sense for Talia to be there. I might just be overthinking things, but maybe there was a reason she was left out. Also, didn't seem to have Bester there, and I have to imagine, obviously, they didn't want to touch too much on the whole telepath war right now, but it seems like this is a prime opportunity to get Walter Koenig back in the show, because he is one of the few remaining original series Star Trek people still alive. He just voiced a cameo in the latest season of Star Trek Picard, so he is capable of doing this, and I would love to see him in Babylon 5 at least one more time before it's too late, knock on wood. Since we've already lost so many of the original Babylon 5 cast members, I really, really want to see as many of the remaining ones return to this universe. So overall, I really enjoyed this, but I wouldn't say it hit it out of the park the way I was hoping for. I'm a sucker for multiverse stories. I'm a sucker for time travel. I'm a sucker for all those things that people are feeling are quite played out right now. A lot of them aren't done well. This one was a very personal story for a character I had already made emotional connections with way back in the day, and it was also a means to an end to set up a potential new venue for all of these fantastic Babylon 5 storylines going forth if we turn out and they decide to actually make more of these. Did you see Babylon 5 The Road Home, and what did you think? Are you going to check it out? Are you hoping they make more? Are you not a big fan of the animation? Oh, one thing I should have touched on, because I did kind of come into this with a preconceived notion I wasn't going to like the character model animation. It didn't bother me as much as I thought it would. Yes, a couple of characters at a few moments didn't really look on model, and it was a bit difficult to tell a few of them apart. Everything else, the animation of the ships, the universe, everything that wasn't necessarily a character's face, looked pretty great to me, so that's something I can look past. I was able to sit down, watch it, and it didn't take me out of it, so that's a plus in my book. Leave all your thoughts down below, like, share, subscribe, do all those fancy YouTube things, and until next time, you're the last best hope.